Here's something every game designer and every game developer out there should think about. What makes something fun? What makes something motivating? Which of the two is more important and how are they connected with each other? Let's start with something that is relatively obvious, but give it time, we'll get there. Just because something is fun does not mean that it is motivating, and just because something is motivating does not mean that this activity is fun. As an example, let's take doing push-ups, because I'm motivated to do that, but it's not fun, it's not enjoyable. Then writing stories and making music are things I really enjoy and I really like once I get into it, but I don't feel motivated to do it. Pretty interesting, huh? And I'm pretty sure you know those kinds of activities as well. Sometimes you just don't want to do something, even though you know exactly that you would enjoy it once you get into it. That's just something you absolutely need to understand. Fun and motivation are not the same things, and they do not come in a package automatically. That being said, I know there's a connection, and this was driving me absolutely crazy because I couldn't figure out how those two were connected. If something is more fun, chances are it's also gonna be pretty motivating, and if something is motivating, chances are it's also gonna be pretty fun, of course, but you cannot rely on that connection. It's not a solid connection. There are a lot of exceptions to this rule. So why are there things that are motivating but not fun? And why are there things that are fun but not motivating? I recently finished reading the book Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, and I'm currently reading a book about gamification by Yu-Kai Chou, and those two books finally helped me to figure it out, I guess. Because, guess what? One of them is about fun and one of them is about motivation. So once again, how are fun and motivation connected to each other? I think the key questions are, how do we create fun and how do we create motivation? Maybe if we answer those two questions, we can solve the mystery. And let's be honest, if you're into game design, game development, or psychology, those are questions you should be pretty interested in anyway. Let's start with fun. How do you create fun? How do you design for fun? How do you make your games more fun? So here's my framework that is supposed to explain all of this. As I've said, it's a mixture of my own thoughts, then the Octalysis framework by Yu-Kai Chou, and the Flow framework by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. And I think fun consists of two things, and by far the most important one is flow. If you want your game to be fun, it needs to have flow. Well, or this other thing we'll talk about soon, but flow is the king. In case you want to learn more about flow, I made an entire video about it, but here's the short version. Flow is the state of optimal experience. It's when you're completely forgetting about time and you become one with the thing you're doing at the moment. You're just focused on that, and that feels super enjoyable and satisfying. Or in another word, fun. The three main conditions for flow to emerge are: your skill needs to match the challenge ahead of you. There needs to be a constant feedback loop. You need to get constant feedback as quickly as possible. And you need to be focused. Your entire attention needs to be focused on one thing. There's probably a little more to it, but if you nail those three things, chances are pretty high you're gonna get yourself or your players into the flow state, and therefore the activity will feel fun. So that is one way to make something fun. But what is the other way? Ta-da! Surprise! I think it's motivation. Just the simple fact that you're motivated to do something can make it more enjoyable. Once again, let's take push-ups as an example, because that is not really a flow activity. It's not something inherently fun. Yeah, sure, you could turn it into a flow activity, but let's just assume it's not, okay? Now, if I'm really motivated to do push-ups, of course I'm gonna have more fun than if somebody forces me to do it. Even though I'm not really enjoying the activity itself, it can still become kind of fun, because I know I'm doing it for myself, I'm doing it for my own good, and I'm working towards a goal, that being health and fitness. So yeah, motivation often provides you with a goal, therefore giving you feedback because you can tell how far or how close you are to that goal. Motivation also helps you to focus, because guess what? If you're more motivated to pay attention and to focus. Yeah, I know, pretty obvious, but it's totally true. And last but not least, if you're not quite skilled enough, if you're not quite good enough to match the challenge ahead of you, motivation can give you the energy and the power to push through and to get to that point where your skill actually matches the challenge. So yeah, I'm not really that sure if motivation impacts the fun you have with something directly, or if motivation just helps you with achieving flow and therefore makes activities more enjoyable and more fun. So that's the first interesting connection. Motivation has a positive impact on your ability to achieve the flow state, and maybe it even has a relatively direct impact on fun and enjoyment. Cool. Motivation impacts fun. But what about the other way around? Well, yeah, you guessed it, there's a connection as well. Because one thing that can really motivate you is the next dopamine kick. You want to have positive feelings. Fun is a positive feeling. So wanting to have fun is a big motivation source. If you had fun with a game once, then what motivates you to come back? Exactly! You want that next dopamine kick. You want to have fun again. Motivation has a positive impact on fun, and fun has a positive impact on motivation, but oh, we're not quite done yet, because we still haven't answered our main question. Why can fun occur without motivation, and why can motivation occur without fun? And how does all of this help us to design better video games? Let's take a breath for a second. Fun is clearly not the only thing that can motivate you. There are a lot of things that can motivate you, and there are a lot of different frameworks and models that try to explain human motivation, but for now let's use the Octalysis framework by Yu-Kai Chou, which was designed for gamification and game design, so that's something that's probably pretty useful to us. The Octalysis framework names 8 core motivations: meaning, empowerment, social influence, unpredictability, avoidance, scarcity, ownership, and accomplishment. Honestly, it's a really cool model, and the only thing I have to add to this is that you're motivated to experience cool things and positive feelings like fun, listen to music, look at beautiful pictures and images, just stimulating your senses and enjoying yourself. And yeah, your need to get the next kick of that is definitely a motivation as well. I think that is mentioned in the book as a hidden core drive, but I'm not that far into the book, so I can't really tell. Anyway, here's the entire picture, here's the entire framework of how I think motivation and fun are connected with each other. You can probably see that fun and motivation are pretty interlinked, so how can it be possible that fun occurs without motivation, and how can it be possible that motivation occurs without fun? Well, easy. Look at my graph. Some connections are stronger than others. Let's just name those 3 things right here. Flow makers because they create flow, and let's name those 8 things here motivation makers because they create motivation. Now let's just assume we have really good flow makers and really bad motivation makers. That will result in good flow and bad motivation. And yes, the bad motivation has definitely an impact on the flow, but it's not strong enough to drag it down. Now, what is more important to create fun, flow or motivation? As you can see, the arrow from flow to fun is much bigger than from motivation to fun, so that's the deciding factor here. And we end up with something that is fun, but not motivating. The same concept still works when you apply it the other way around. Let's assume we have really good motivation makers and really bad flow makers. Et voila! You end up with something that is really motivating, but not fun. Cool! But we're still not done, because there are still more questions to answer. Which of the two, from a game designer perspective, from a game developer perspective, which one of the two is more important, fun or motivation? What would you say? For me, this is absolutely a no-brainer. I think motivation is much more important, because without motivation, people will not play your game. You don't want to be one of those games that people really enjoy when they actually play it, but they never want to play it. And yeah, I know exactly what you're thinking right now. Oh, I'll just focus on fun, because if my game is fun, then people will come back and want to play more. And I mean, yes, of course, we talked about this in this video. Obviously this works. Fun is also a motivation source. But look, there are a ton of games that I know are really fun and that I know I enjoy, but I still don't feel motivated to play them, and that's why I don't play them. For example, Nuclear Throne, Infinifactory, League of Legends. Now go into your head and think about an activity or a game that you haven't played in ages, but you know you would enjoy if you picked it up right now. In many cases, fun alone is just not enough to get you motivated. And what's even worse is that if you want to sell your game, people don't know if your game is fun. So yeah, sure, fun can be a good way to get players back to your game after they played it a couple of times. But for getting new players, you just need different motivation sources than fun. Okay, I guess fun kind of works. If you can convince your customers that your game's fun, okay. But yo, I don't know about you, but for me it just feels like a giant gamble just to focus on fun. Because fun is not what drives action. Motivation is what drives action. And there are a lot more tools you can use to motivate people. Nope, I'm not talking about adding high score systems and badges and achievements to absolutely everything. That's just lazy design. I'm talking about using meaning, narrative, social influence, empowerment. I feel like those things are just way more suitable to acquire new players and also to keep your current players. But then once again, what do I know? I have never published a successful video game. I am not an expert. But I'm currently giving it my first real shot. I'm currently developing a video game on this YouTube channel, and I'm documenting absolutely everything. There are more videos like this. If you're interested in this, check it out. But whoa, wait, before you leave, I have a couple more questions for you, because I don't want to give you just my blah blah. I also want to know what you think. There are some really smart people in my viewership and on the internet in general. Let's figure this out together. Let's solve these mysteries once and for all. For humanity and for all the game designers out there, let's unite. And here are the questions. What do you think is the correlation between fun and motivation? Which of the two is more important in which kind of project? Is fun really a sufficient motivation source nowadays? Then in case you're a game developer and you make games, which tricks and techniques do you use to make your games fun and motivating? What are the most motivating games for you? What are the most fun games for you? Are they the same games? Is there a right and a wrong way to create motivation? What about daily login bonuses and stuff like that? And the last question is a hypothetical one, but I think it's a really interesting one as well. If you could choose between never experiencing fun ever again and never experiencing motivation ever again in your entire life, which one of the two would you choose? Very curious to hear your answers to that one. You don't have to answer all of those questions. I'm completely happy if you answer just one of them and contribute to the discussion and the community in this way. If you don't have anything to add, don't worry either. But I'd be really interested. This is a YouTube channel about game design and making video games. If you're interested in that, have a look. Other than that, I hope we can have an amazing discussion in the comments, as always. As game designers, as game developers, these questions are just so important to understand. Have a nice day, hope this was interesting, make the world your playground, and see you in the next one. Peace!